This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
And welcome in, folks, to another edition of Open Mic Night. I am your host, Noah Taluki, and on today's episode, Michigan party like it's 2011. They beat up on the Ohio State Buckeyes at the Big House. We'll talk about more about that as well. Also, what does this win mean for Michigan's program and also for Jim Harbaugh's legacy so far at the University of Michigan? I'll break that down for you as well. And also a little Thanksgiving spoiler, the Lions losing on the final play of the game yet again, 16-14 against the division rival Chicago Bears. I'll break that game down for you. And also a little talk about Dan Campbell maybe getting fired. Fans don't want him anymore, and I'm gonna take a little deep dive into that because I think it's a very interesting point that some fans are making about this, because there was a lot of shenanigans that happened at the end of the game that I was not a fan of, and that really shows a lot of just poor coaching in my opinion. But we'll talk a little bit more about the Thanksgiving spoiler Lions a little bit later on. But I gotta lead off with this Michigan. And by the way, I hope everyone had a tremendous Thanksgiving. It was really great to be back home, back in Detroit, watching the Lions on TV. I'm not watching it on DirecTV, NFL Sunday Ticket, or anything. I'm watching it right here on the local channel. And it was fun. It was a lot of great food my dad made, and it just, food, family, football, all that. It was just a really, really fun day. And I'm actually recording this a little early. I'm recording this on Sunday night this week because I am going to Florida this week for a wedding down in the Florida Keys. So I'll kind of recap my trip a little bit next week, but a little bit of an early podcast, if you will, and hope to watch the Michigan game down there, because they are your 2021 Big Ten East Division champions by beating Ohio State in the game 42-27. All right, so I kind of want to start off talking about the game a little bit. Let's go back. Let's rewind to the beginning of the year when Harbaugh is at the Big Ten Media Day in August, and he's talking about Ohio State. And, there's just, and I talked about it on a previous podcast a couple months ago, there just didn't seem to be any energy about Michigan football. He didn't really have an energetic press conference. It was more so, and then the quote was, we're gonna die trying. We're gonna try, but we're gonna die trying, but we're gonna try against Ohio, to try to beat Ohio State, or something along those lines at Big Ten Media Day. Listening to that, I'm just thinking, oh, here goes another wasted season for Michigan. Just nothing. It's going to go down the drain. It's just going to be like any other year. They might have some success early on. People are talking, and then once it comes to the big games, the big rivals, they're not going to do anything. And of course, they start off hot, beat kind of some no-name teams. Western Michigan, Washington wasn't that strong. Northern Illinois. I mean, they beat up on those teams like they do every year. But then they're undefeated by the time they get to Michigan State. And I'm like, okay, and if Michigan wins this game, that's big. That's huge for the program. I think that's going to really take them forward. And they lost to Michigan State, and I thought the season was over. I didn't think Michigan could recover. I kind of lost hope because, you go down that train again of Harbaugh losing to his rivals. Can't beat his rivals. Can't win on the road. Can't win against a top 10 team on the road. So Michigan State beats Michigan. And all Michigan did from that point out was get better. They go and beat Indiana the next week 29-7. They go to Penn State, who was ranked number 23 at the time, beat them 21-17. I mean, this was a game that, they were out of. It seemingly. And then they found a way back to crawl back in and win. Then they go to Maryland and beat up on them 59-18. So, they go 3-0 in that stretch between the Michigan State loss and the Ohio State game. And now you're thinking, okay, Ohio State comes in. They're the number 2 team in the country. and a team that just kept getting better and better as the season went on. You saw C.J. Stroud look very comfortable in the pocket against Michigan State. And, C.J. Stroud, first year starting, he's a redshirt freshman, young quarterback. But coming in for Ohio State, they had some nice wins, but, who had they really beaten on the road? Minnesota, at Minnesota. And Minnesota seemingly was about to pull off the upset week 1. Remember, there was a lot of people screaming at Ohio State, their defense and all that. And we'll get to their defense later because the defense did not have a response for Michigan at all. Then, they lost to Oregon at home. Their next road game was against Rutgers, took care of them 52-13. At Indiana, 54-7. Indiana went 2-10. God bless them. Nebraska, 26-17. Nebraska, they played some Big Ten teams tough this year. So, I'll give them the win at Nebraska, but that was probably their best road game before Michigan. So, they'd only played, a handful of games on the road. 4 to be exact, before the Michigan game. So, and the defense has been the problem all year for Ohio State. But coming in, I just thought I knew it'd be close, but I didn't think Michigan would win. Based on a little bit of past history, but this Michigan team proved to me over the weekend that this is a very, very different team. This is just different. It's a different team than when Harbaugh, his first couple years. It's a different team than it was last year that seemed disinterested and just totally disorganized and all over the place. This is a very different Michigan team, and I don't know what it was. But, a good friend of the program, Rick Finati, who was a coach with Harbaugh his first 2 seasons, he kept telling me he thinks the X factor this season for Michigan has been their defensive coordinator, Mike McDonald. He was the Ravens linebacker coach for a number of years before coming over as Michigan's DC. He's an NFL guy, and he's taken that defense to a whole nother level. You've seen the emergence of Aiden Hutchinson. 3 sacks on Saturday. 3 by himself. 3 sacks. He has completely elevated his game, and he's going in the early first round. I want the Lions to take Aiden Hutchinson. I don't know if it's going to happen or not, but the Lions need a guy that plays with that fire. And look, trust me, guys, nothing about him being from Plymouth, going to Divine Child, that doesn't have anything to do with it. Being the hometown kid. A guy like that is what the Lions need. Some guy that brings energy on the defense. A guy that can get after the quarterback, which is what Aiden Hutchinson can do. But he just has proven week in and week out that he has just dominated. 3 sacks against a pretty good Ohio State offensive line. And that defense, I felt when Michigan took the ball in the first half, they received the kick, and they scored 10 plays, 75-yard drive. I had a feeling Michigan just took it right down and scored. This is going to be interesting. I could see Michigan hanging around. And then, you saw C.J. Stroud take the lead on that Garrett Wilson touchdown pass, which was just a beautiful throw and a beautiful catch in the corner, the left corner of the end zone. And they took that 10-7 lead, but I didn't think Michigan was ever out of the game. It was a 1-point game at half, and I just was like, I think Michigan has this. Michigan's outplaying Ohio State. They got this. Not once did I think Ohio State was going to win that game. Not once. During the game. Before, of course, I thought Ohio State was going to win. During the game, I didn't think so. Especially after they took that 7-0 lead. And I know, not McCarthy, McNamara. He was throwing some good balls. I know he had that interception in the red zone. That was probably the only chance that I thought maybe Ohio State would creep back in. Maybe. But I still felt really confident in Michigan. And, that's another guy that he didn't get enough credit for in that game, but, Cade McNamara made some really good throws. And then they put J.J. McCarthy in. the backup quarterback, he had some nice runs. He even had that 131-yard completion. I mean, he was throwing some good balls out there. Especially, you got to account for the weather and all that. And by the way, speaking of the weather, I don't want to hear anything about Ohio State complaining about how the weather, they couldn't run their spread offense because of the weather. Like, I've heard some people talk about it. I don't want to hear that. You have to adjust. Great teams adjust. You have to adjust to the weather. C.J. Stroud, I know he had 394 yards, but, I mean, those Michigan corners were absolutely blanketing those receivers. I mean, they just have a bunch of world-class, talented guys. I mean, that Jackson Smith-Njigba, he had over 100 yards. Garrett Wilson over 100 yards. Chris Olave, 88. I mean, those three guys are pretty solid receivers. And C.J. Stroud was just making those perfect throws they just had to be perfect to be completed. I know they had that fourth down completion. It was just basically just right there, right in between Vincent Gray, the DB, I believe it was, in coverage, and then Smith-Njigba's fingers. It was just right there in the pocket, right there. I mean, it couldn't have been more. And then the jump ball he threw to Garrett Wilson, another one that with great coverage from Vincent Gray. But it was just a great catch and a great ball. So C.J. Stroud pretty much had to be perfect in order to beat Michigan, and the 4 sacks, and I gotta give credit to Michigan's offensive line. They really had their way with Ohio State. They were pushing those guys up front. I mean, that's how Michigan was able to run to the tune of 297 yards and 6 touchdowns. Hassan Haskins, how about that? Tied a school record. 5 touchdowns. 5 touchdowns rushing in the game. He was having a day. And that's the thing I credit Michigan about in the game. When Ohio State scored, they could have easily panicked. We've seen Harbaugh choke away fourth quarter leads. And you know what? They kept it on the ground, and they kept chugging. They kept getting first downs when they needed to. And then Ohio State basically let them score at the end. Ohio State, they kind of quit. They says, we're done. It's your year, Michigan. They let Hassan Haskins score at the end. They didn't even try on that last play. It was incredible. And I gotta say, Michigan fans, you deserve this win. You deserve it. First time ever you're going to Indianapolis. This is what they paid Harbaugh the big bucks for. Going to Indianapolis, winning Big Ten championships, going to the college football playoff. It took 7 years, but Michigan is finally there. And I don't want to hear Spartan fans complaining. Guys, you guys have had your chance. Why did you guys lose to Ohio State? Got blown out, only scored 7 points. There's obvious work to do for Michigan State. And to be quite frank, if Michigan and Michigan State rematched, if they had a rematch, Michigan would win, I think. Now, am I going to sit here and start crowning Michigan and saying that they're flawless? No. I don't. Their skill guys don't really scare me. Blake Corum's fast. Does he scare? He had the 55-yard run. Does he scare me, though? Not exactly. Does a guy like Cornelius Johnson or Roman Wilson or any of those guys, Donovan Edwards? No. I'm not scared of any of those guys. So I think that is one weakness of Michigan. They don't really have explosive skill guys, but their bread and butter all season has been running that football. And I know I talked about it before on other podcasts how, teams could be figuring that out. You can't just rely on the run because they've tried to rely on the run in the past and it hasn't worked. This season, like I told you before, it's a different team. It's a different ball club. Relying on the run has helped. And you know what? I credit Michigan. They didn't really stray away from who they were because teams can easily do that in those big games. They can stray away from who they are, and that's when they choke. It's not like they came out and were throwing it, 50 times. The weather favored them. The game plan was to run, and they did it. And Michigan had every right to go storm that field afterwards. They had every right to celebrate. This was their moment. I just loved watching Aiden Hutchinson's interview afterwards. I mean, just so genuine and almost in tears. I mean, especially his dad and the whole story with him and how he was the Big Ten Lineman of the Year in 1992, and he's wearing his number for his dad. And his dad's an ER doctor at Beaumont Royal Oak, and it's just a good story. He's definitely he's probably my favorite player on this Michigan team, that Aiden Hutchinson. I mean, he is for real. He is for real. And, they got a good test against Iowa. I mean, I don't think Iowa, that's not going to be an easy game. I was really rooting for Wisconsin, though. I'm not going to lie. I saw my guy Scotty Nelson. We've had him on the podcast before. He had a pick six. He's a guy, an old U of D Cub that I played with back in the day. He had the interception return for a touchdown for Wisconsin. I thought they were going to beat Minnesota, but Minnesota got the axe back, the rivalry trophy. And they ended Wisconsin's Big Ten West champion hopes, and that's how we got to Iowa, the Hawkeyes. Remember, Iowa was a top 5 team a couple months ago. They had just had some losses here and there, and slid down to number 16, I believe, in the latest poll, at least before this week. But I think it's going to be a good game. I think Michigan's going to win, though. I think they have that mentality that this is their year. And they're going to go out and if they win that game, I mean, they're guaranteed a spot in the college football playoff, no doubt. That would be so huge for Harbaugh and his legacy. I told you we were going to talk a little bit about Harbaugh as well. This is what they paid him the big bucks for. He took the pay cut this year. He did. There was, heightened expectations, especially with the pay cut. A little more pressure on him. And he did nothing but deliver. Just a different Michigan team. A team that can really, some people say, go down in the ages in Michigan. We'll have to see. But say they win the Big Ten championship, they're probably going to get a 2 or a 3 seed in the college football playoff. It's going to be interesting, though, because especially if whoever wins that Georgia-Alabama game, if Georgia beats Alabama, are they going to put a 2-loss Alabama team in? Are they going to put the Big 12 champion in? Or could they pull a fast one and put Cincinnati in? I mean, it's going to be interesting because I think Georgia's guaranteed in the college football playoff, win or lose. So even if they lose to Bama, 1-loss Georgia team will still go in the college football playoff. I really see Michigan getting a 2 or a 3. So they possibly could be in that national championship. Look, I don't want to get too far ahead. They need to beat Iowa first because if they lose to Iowa, the season's over. No college football playoff. But I'm very happy for Michigan. I am. I want Michigan to do well. Some people out there think I'm a big Sparty guy, which I am in basketball. Football, I've just been so upset at Michigan over the years because Michigan has such great tradition, such a good fan base. The legacy of Bo Schembechler, Fritz Chrysler, Fielding Yost. I mean, it just goes back and back. And all the great players that have played for Michigan. And the program I just always thought it was just a slap in the face to Bo and the legacy that he created and all those other guys did. And the fact that Harbaugh's gotten Michigan back up there and they have a chance at a Big Ten championship for the first time in his career, that's a major step forward. And it makes me happy for all the Michigan fans out there and everyone, because that was a very good showing that they had for Ohio State. And Ohio State just had no answer. They had none. And Michigan was just pounding that rock. They kept getting those first downs. Really, really nice to see. By the way, that Travion Henderson from Ohio State, only 74 yards on the ground. I mean, it seemed like it was working early, but Michigan really stopped that run as well. So credit to the defense. I mean, just an all-around great effort. And I'm sure a lot of people were very, very happy on Saturday, having some fun on Saturday night in Ann Arbor. That's for sure. All right, before we get out of here, I want to talk a little bit about this Lions game, because this is... Let's travel back to the beginning of the season. Did we think the Lions were going to be good? No. Did we know that they would lose? Yes. We know they would lose a lot because the team didn't have a lot of talent. Now, do I think there's some pieces there? Yes. But do I think they're loaded with, Pro Bowlers? It's very obvious they're not. Probably the worst receiving core in the NFL right now. And despite the defense playing well yet again, only allowing 16 points. They only allowed 16 to Pittsburgh, only 13 to the Browns. This is their third straight game where they have allowed less than 20 points, and the Lions have lost. This was the third game this season where the Lions have lost on the final play of the game. All game-winning field goals. I just got to say, and this is the first time I'm going to admit this, it's going to be hard to win a game the rest of the season. I hate saying it as a Lions fan. I always have that hope like something is going to break. I feel like the chance that they may have is against Atlanta on the road, but even that's not guaranteed. This was, of all the games on the schedule, this was the best chance that the Lions had to win. They started Andy Dalton. Andy Dalton threw for over 300 yards, but the Lions kept holding them in check. They kept them out of the end zone. But they gave the offense some chances. Goff, 21 of 25. I mean, he was accurate. I will give him that. This was one of Jared Goff's better games I saw as a line. Him as a line. He got the ball to TJ. TJ had a touchdown. Yay. He scored for the first time since week 2 against the Packers on Monday Night Football. Yes. This is what you drafted him for. Keep giving TJ the football. It also didn't help that Swift had a shoulder injury. I really hope that that's nothing serious. It didn't seem like he was in a sling or anything on the sidelines after that second quarter when he landed on the shoulder bad. So I'm hoping it's not anything too serious. We'll get some more injury reports later on, but oh my gosh, this is just another example of just I know it's not a word, but the badness of this team. And it's reflected in the coaching staff, because this is the other point I wanted to make. These late game shenanigans are unacceptable. This was the 11th game of the season, week 12, Thanksgiving in front of a national audience. You still can't get personnel right. Week 12, and you're still struggling with personnel. Then you burn 2 timeouts in a row when the Bears are on the red zone. You can't do that. You can't spend 2 timeouts in a row, which resulted in a penalty. Dan Campbell said, we weren't in the right defense. I didn't want to give up a touchdown. I would rather have taken the timeout, taken the penalty, and then given up the touchdown. Guys, this is not what I was expecting. Because here's the thing. We knew this team was going to be bad. We knew we weren't going to win a lot of games. But the coach has to at least guide the ship, at least guide these guys to not screwing things up too much. Obviously, we understand the cards that he's dealt, the talent, the very little talent that he has, the roster that he has. But Dan Campbell and company are putting some of these, they're losing some games for the Lions. I mean, that's unacceptable. So, like I mentioned in the teaser at the beginning of the podcast, now people are calling for his head. Now they want him fired. You know what? So I thought about this for a while on Thursday after the game. Could the Lions pull, because the only example I can think of, at least in recent memory, is like pulling a Steve Wilks with the Cardinals. They hire Steve Wilks in 2018 for 1 season. They fire him at the end of the season because they got their guy Cliff Kingsbury. Could the Lions fire Dan Campbell after 1 season? Do I think it's going to happen? No. We've seen the history with the Ford family, and I know Sheila's a different owner. I'm willing to give Sheila a chance. I've told you guys this before. I'm willing to see what she can do. I'm willing to see what Spielman can do. I'm willing to see what Brad Holmes. I'm willing to see how they all sort of connect and if they see eye to eye on this. But I don't think they're going to fire this guy. They brought him here on a 6-year contract. I'm not concerned about the contract because there's teams that can buy it out. Lions can buy it out, whatever. I'm not concerned about the 6 years. I understand it's going to take time, but when you keep making mistakes like this, when are you going to stop? Like, when are you going to learn from your mistakes? It's not like he made it once and that's it. This has happened multiple times throughout the season. I mean, week 12 and you still can't get personnel right. That's coaching. These guys, I just don't know if this is the right fit. And we all know Dan Campbell was not the number one guy for the Lions. Their number one guy was Matt Campbell. I think they wanted a college coach, because a lot of NFL guys just did not want this job. They wanted a college coach, could come in, bring some new energy. Some fans out there were saying the Lions should fire Dan Campbell and hire Ryan Day. Ryan Day, an Urban Meyer disciple. How's that working out in Jacksonville? But I think it's very interesting how a lot of people want him fired. Lions fans have had enough. They're done with this. Nobody, including myself, thought the Lions would be winless by Thanksgiving. Winless. It's disgraceful. It's not even like the Lions are really showing much improvement. They've gotten worse offensively, at least in the passing game. Swift seems to have gotten a little bit better, but that's about the only offense the Lions have. Oh, and they actually got Josh Reynolds involved this week. Yay. He had a nice route. Why wasn't Josh Reynolds used against Cleveland? Use a guy like this. You need as much help on the receiving end as you can get. Use him. Target him a lot. It's just some of this stuff. He led the team with 3 catches for 70 yards and that touchdown. Man, I thought the Lions. Oh man, I thought it was their day once they had that touchdown. Then they were up by 1. Cairo Santos hit that 28-yard field goal. How about that? An 18-play drive. Took 8 minutes. They had the ball with 8 minutes and 30 seconds left. They go on the field in 18 plays. Keep the ball. Crazy. I don't know, guys. This team gives me headaches. And I'm a true Blue Lions, guys. You know me. We've had all our Lions guests on in the past, all those ex-Lions players and all that. I try to stay as positive about the Lions as I can, but when they have messes like this, and I'm seeing other teams out there who, by this point in the season are not having these problems, I just don't get it. Very much trending like the Lions are going to be having the number 1 overall pick again. First time since 2009 when they drafted Stafford. Yeah, looks like Kevon Thibodeau from Oregon is the number 1 guy right now. But I don't want to get into draft talk. We're talking about the present here. And I don't know. Lions play the Vikings next week at home. I'm just saying, let's just not hope this is an embarrassment. Let's not let it be a blowout to the Bengals or a blowout to the Eagles. Keep this game competitive. Dan Campbell, show me, please, that you can lead this team and not make the same mistakes again. Please, just show some improvement, please. That's all I'm asking. Oh, and one more thing. Why is he calling plays? Why? Has he ever called plays before? No. By the way, Anthony Lynn is a bad. I'm over Anthony Lynn. He is not a good play caller. I think the Lions should fire him after this season. But giving the play calls to Dan Campbell. Look, I understand you're just trying to find a spark, but he probably feels that there's nothing to lose because of the team's record. And I don't know, maybe he's just trying to learn on the job too. I don't know, but I just don't know what decision that was when he decided to call the plays. It's very strange to me. Very strange. Make sure to check out all the other great content on the podcast network. Doc and Jock podcast is always one of the best on the network. Also, the wrestling podcast, the Michigan football podcast. I'm sure Steve Dace and company is going to be just ecstatic right now. And I can't wait to hear that 10-minute war that he does with Mark Rogers as well. That's always entertaining. Mark Rogers, of course, the only sane Buckeye fan as Steve Dace likes to call him. He's a big the voice of college football. He's a big Buckeye fan, and also all the other great content with with the Jock Strozinski, Adam, and all them. It's a lot of fun. It's really, really cool, and I'm really happy that I'm still a part of this, and very thankful for my Thanksgiving that I'm able to be with you guys hosting my 74th podcast. And I have not missed a week since June of 2020 when I first started. So it's a great experience to be with this network, and awesome. And don't forget about John and the amazing stuff he does with the Lockdown. Or I'm sorry, that's our friend Matt Derry, the SI Lions that he does for Sports Illustrated, and he does a fantastic job with that. And I don't know if the content is all that positive right now, but definitely. We'll see if the Lions can muster up at least a win, but at least people have Michigan. Michigan is the one team that people have to cheer for right now, at least in football, because Michigan State, even with the big victory over Penn State, they'll be going to a New Year's Six Bowl, but not the Big Ten championship, and have lost out on their hopes of the college football playoff. But so long, folks. I'll definitely enjoy my time down in the Keys in Florida. Never been there before, so I should get a nice tan and be back up to snowy Michigan just in time to do another edition of the podcast. Thanks again, folks, and make sure to tune in next week only on Open Mic Night.